Hello,
Hi,
I'm Ashton,
and I'm Kayla.
and today we are talking about Kayla's original horror story, Circus Teeth, which, if you've been following Taylor Swift but make it horror, I think that you know what this one is because it is a very perfect title. But for those of you who do not know, it is based off of or inspired by Who's Afraid of Little Old Me, off
Mhm.
of the Tortured Poets Department. Kayla, would you like to talk a little bit about what this is about?
Yes, but before I forget, I would like to say this one's a little more graphic than some of my other ones when it comes to violence, so keep that in mind. Um,
And this
but
interview will contain spoilers. So if
it
you have
will.
not watched it, please click on the video link below. And if I remember, the little tag at the top.
Yes. Oh, and also there is mistreatment of animals. So now that we have some little warnings out of the way. Circus Teeth follows the character of Sophia, who is a fortune teller in the circus, and she is being criminally underpaid by her boss, and let's face it, like when she was a child, guardian, Dawn, and she kind of goes to him wanting more money after he promised her a raise that he did not provide. And she is encouraged when it is declined to go and ask for another one, which leads to a disfigurement and ultimately a lot of death. And yeah, that's probably as much as I'll go into the description for now. So,
Yeah, that's fair. I do think so. We started this project before the Tortured Poets Department was announced. And when it came out, Kayla and I were watching this together and messaging about how this was going to be the absolute like perfect one to change into a horror story because it kind of writes itself
yeah.
a little bit. And like we have like friends, I don't know about you, but I had a friend who messaged me, was like, "Are you gonna do this one? Please do this one." 'Cause I'm not, but Kayla is already talking about it. So this one has been in the works for a while now.
Yes. So it was actually like really fun to write just because I feel like, I don't know, had a lot of things to really play with in here. And this wasn't like the first story that actually popped into my head. The one that popped into my head was more inspired by so all you kids can sneak into my house with all the cobwebs. She's always drunk on her own tears. Isn't that what they all said? And I kind of wanted to toy around with that. But the story that I had actually had nothing to do with a circus, and it was a bit more like in depth and complicated and more societal kind of, stuff. And I was like, yo, I have some stuff coming up. I need to write a story that's not going to take that that much effort. Which this one still took a lot of effort, but so yeah,
Yeah,
um,
I was gonna say, like, just because like the story kind of like feels like it wrote itself doesn't mean that Kayla did not do a fantastic job of pulling her own story from this and creating it. Like she took elements from it, but it's very much a Kayla story, not a Taylor Swift story. Just throwing that out there. I mean, I love this story. I don't know if I'm just like biased because I really like the theme of circus and just like all that like hype going up to it to begin with, or
Mm.
if you just really just knocked it out of the park with this.
Well, I'm hoping it's the second one, but
Yes.
thankfully by the time this interview is posted, if you decide otherwise, no one's gonna know. So
Yeah, and it is coming out there in spooky months, so it's
yeah.
perfect. And like I think I compliment you on this like every single time, but your intros are so good. And I really liked this one, like, because you did a really good job, like, not only, like, pulling on, like, everybody's, like, sense of, like, sight and, like, helping them, like, picture the scene, but also, like, the sense of smell, because this is, like, a paraphrase, but it's, like, after the crowds vanished and the music stopped, the smell still lingered, in the air, and she walks and while she's walking, like, all of the, like, nostalgic smells get kind of, like, replaced, like, with the smell of, like, fecal matter and, like, urine, and you kinda get to see, like, the shit behind it,
Yeah,
and
literally.
yeah, and I absolutely just I love griminess, like, I love when stories are, like, not afraid to, like, talk about, like, disgusting things.
I think that's kind of the thing that pulled me, like when I was trying to, like, because like I said, I had like two different stories in mind, was kind of the animal mistreatment aspect of it. And though I didn't focus, like, it's not like the main focus of the story, I think that it's still very present. And I think that's like, I know that they say that animals are treated better in the circus now. I don't really know if that's true,
Yeah.
but I know that there have been a lot of stories about like just animals in their own filth and like their teeth like getting broken and pulled out and because like I guess like there have been dentists who have went and tried to like fix lions' teeth from the circus that have been all broken and everything. And I was like, that's really sad. And I feel like I want to incorporate it in here in some
Yeah.
way.
And like even though you do touch on that, I like initially like whenever you see an animal in a show, like your initial thought or in a show or read about one in a book, especially one that's a horror theme, you're just like, shit, something's gonna happen to this animal and I don't want to watch this or read
Yeah.
it. But then I remembered this is a Kayla story, and Kayla absolutely hates anything that goes into depictions of violence against animals, and the
Yeah.
lion's gonna be okay.
Well, I'm kind of hoping that I did a decent enough job at letting people know that, hey, this is a horrific situation for an animal without being like super graphic with it because I don't like reading those types of stories. And I wanted to kind of like try to stay true to like hey, animals are mistreated, or at least were. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know the story now. Haven't looked into like modern circuses in a while. Like I saw some videos where people say that they're better now, but I wanted to kind of be like, hey, animals were mistreated, but I don't want to show you the extent of it. I can give you a little bit and maybe you'll get an idea.
Yeah, which I appreciate. I was gonna ask you, when did this take place?
In my head, I wanted it to be the 30s.
Okay.
Um, but I'm not quite sure if because I didn't do a whole lot of research. I did some stuff when it came up to like looking at terms and stuff, which I feel like I actually got one thing wrong, and it wasn't until after I'd already recorded, and I was like, I even looked this up before I wrote it, and did I still get it wrong because Google's telling me something different now, so.
Yeah. There is a strange word that is used in here that I have never heard before.
The bourgeois,
Yes,
bourgeois.
what is that?
Um, I was trying to look up a word that wasn't an actual curse word for like bullshit but I didn't want to use the word baloney. And
Okay,
that was one of the words that came up. And I'm hoping that I used it correctly because when I Googled it before, it told me, yeah, this means like baloney, bullshit kind of thing. And then I Googled it again and it said something else. I'm like, Google, what are you doing to me? Same
right.
thing with like, I didn't use the word record player because I saw they used the term like phonograph or something. And when I looked it up to make sure they were the same thing, one of them showed what looks like an actual record player. And then when I looked it up again after I wrote it, it showed something that looked very different from a record player. And I'm just like, I mean, it looks the same with like speakers and stuff, but like without the little tone arm and stuff. And I'm like, well, that's kind of important. Oh, well.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, like, I was just like, whatever. Kayla knows what she's talking about, so I'm just gonna let her have it. Can you tell me more about who Sophia is?
Yes. So I knew that I wanted to have a character that was in the circus, but wasn't considered like, I didn't want to go too far into like, and I'm saying this because it's what they used to call them, the freaks of the circus, right? Because I felt like I didn't have enough information to do that in the way that it would deserve to be done for a main character. But I knew that I didn't want her to be like normal. I don't like using that word, but for the sake of being simple here.
Right.
Um, and I know that a lot of times they will have acts such as like clowns and fortune tellers and stuff. And for me, I actually have her name. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it correctly. I think her name was like Julia Pastrana. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but she had there are other words I can't pronounce correctly either. But was a circus performer, and it was there were multiple versions of what her backstory was before the circus, and one of them was that she lived with her mother, and after her mother died, her uncle sold her to the circus. And I was like, well, that's kind of sad that someone could just like do that. So that's kind of where Sophia's background kind of comes from. And I'm sure there are other circus performers who have probably been sold into that kind of life as well, was something she didn't really choose, but was basically chosen for her. And that's why Dawn kind of has so much power over her. She's been basically like, he has basically owned me. I belong to him. And that's basically what her character is.
I kind of got the gist from reading this that she was one of like the first performers that he kind of picked up.
Yeah.
Accurate.
She's was there from the very beginning, and like I don't go too far into it, but the circus wasn't doing very well, even though they have some talented people in there, they weren't doing very well. This is before they got, the people such as the bearded lady or the twins. And what happened was she had a reading for the mayor of their city, and it turned out being to be incredibly accurate. I'm not going to go into what it was. In my head, I have an idea of what it was, but it was something big, and it kind of caused a lot of talk and drew people to their show. So she's kind of the reason why his circus is even successful.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's what I thought. And so I guess maybe you don't know, but you probably know since you were the author. So did she already know that she had this talent? And I just want to know backstory of her.
Yeah,
That's why she was sold.
yeah, she knew it like as a child, and obviously her parents knew it, and that's why she ended up where she was. She was kind of a little naive and not knowing that, like, because she was very young at the time, like not knowing that it was going to be trouble for her or something people would take advantage of.
Yeah. And I don't think that this is the case, but the like thought kind of like jumped into my head with the treatment of Chloe.
Mhm.
And I was kind of wondering with Dawn, does he tend to go for relations with the women in the circus? And then it was kind of like a different scenario with her being a minor and him not necessarily, because like I don't want to assume that he was kind of grooming her and then she ended up not being pretty, but I kind of also got that sense.
I mean, I in my head it wasn't too much like that because it was more so just the power for him, more so than grooming her. I mean, he did groom her to be like, what she is, but like it wasn't so much like in a I'm going to have a relationship with her kind of way, but he does definitely tend to go for the people in the circus who he believes to be beautiful because he already feels like he has something over these people who feel like, oh, I owe him like my life because he's given me so much. And those people who are like considered beautiful, he needs to have some sort of other power over him, which is why him and Chloe are in a thing. I did want to say that I know I said I wanted to stay away from like the whole freak show type of thing because I didn't want to go to American Horror Story freak show or like 1932's freaks. But some of my characters were kind of inspired, and like some of the things were kind of inspired from freaks. And that's why Chloe is a trapeze artist, and because there's kind of a bitchy trapeze artist and freaks, and
Gotcha.
yeah,
Um,
Sam
So yeah,
being a clown
so
and very nice.
I know that you obviously got inspiration from names from another song on the same album, which I think that I'm probably going to mix up the names in the order, so I'm not going to say
What
it.
could they be?
But what happened to Marcus?
Dawn, I was going to name Marcus, but I have a cousin named Marcus, and I don't know, it just felt weird. And I had in my head the name Dawn, and I was like, he's not a Marcus, he's just a Dawn. So
That's
Marcus kind of just got the boot.
Yeah, I didn't know if the name Don kind of came from so in Godfather and like Italian Mafia, Don is a title, and I didn't
Mm.
know if you were going for that angle because he sees himself as like the Don of the circus.
I didn't know that, but we're gonna go with that and say, yeah, I thought about that. That's exactly what happened.
Okay, perfect.
I got the name from the newsroom. I used to watch the newsroom, and there was a character named Dawn in there, and I thought it fit. Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, I think it fits, and I think that even though you didn't intend for the name Don to be used in the way that it was, that it still fits in like the little like mafia because he is a very sadistic man.
Yeah, he's
Has
not very
he,
nice.
yeah, has he always been like this, or is this something that like as the circus got more popular?
Yeah, in my head, he was always somebody who was kind of an asshole, but he didn't you know those people who desperately want power, and when they finally get a little taste of it, it kind of goes to their head and then they become absolute monsters?
Yeah,
That's kind of what he is he's just somebody who always just wanted power, and when he felt like he had it, it just ballooned.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, because of his nature, and like obviously he is screwing over pretty much everybody who works under him, but in different ways. And why the hell did Sam think that that would be a good idea to send her back to him, knowing how sadistic and how much of an asshole he is?
Well, to them, Don getting physical is kind of just a normal thing. Like, oh, you say something he doesn't like, he backhands you, and nobody likes it, but like it's what they're used to. And Sam actually really cares about her. And he's like, no, you deserve more than this. But he didn't think it was going to that what happened. He didn't have any idea that that was going to happen. And I think he was just kind of more scared. Like they're all scared of him, but I think he really wanted better for Sophia, and so he was pushing her to try to get better. It didn't really turn out well.
So, were they dating or was it just like a close friendship?
It was a close friendship.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't really get dating vibes, but I just wanted to double check.
Yeah, no, it's just a close friendship.
So then with the raise, why did he promise her one? Like, was that something on her end that she didn't fulfill, or why even say that in the first place? Just
I
to be an
mean,
asshole?
you know how people like to just dangle basically little carrots in front of you and then they're like, oh, oh, like rip it away. That's basically what it was. It's like, oh yeah, you want one? Sure, okay. And it's like making promises that he knows he's not going to keep, but like, yeah, he's just an asshole. She had the audacity, like, oh, I'm already paying you something. You should be like groveling at my feet because you're the reason you have the life that you have. And since you have the audacity to even ask, I'm going to dangle it and just rip it away. And he's just kind of awful.
Yeah, which I would assume was not uncommon. I mean, I haven't really looked into the history of the circus at all, but it seems like it's basically a lot of like indentured workers for the most
Yeah.
part.
And I saw like some people got paid, and I know this doesn't seem like a lot now, but some people got paid like two to like three, $400 a week, is from what I saw.
Oh wow.
And so like there's this big thing of they're being taken advantage of, and you're exploiting them, and then it's and versus the okay, but like they want to have the life that they have, the career that they have, the money that they have, had you not given that to them. So there's kind of like these mixed things that I was seeing when it came to
Yeah.
stuff.
It's like I know that a lot of people in desperation would back in those times like join the circus
Yeah.
specifically for a chance of life, quote unquote, even though it's not really great.
Yeah, and I would like to say I'm not like an expert. Like I did some Googling, I watched some videos, made some notes, but I am in by no means like am an expert when it comes to the circus. So if I got some things wrong,
So
putting that out there.
yeah. I was wondering about Chloe. Does she actually like him, or is this kind of a this is her way of kind of managing him being an asshole, of Don being an asshole?
It's her way of managing it. And it's not like she's completely like she also likes a sense of also having some power too. Like it's her way of managing it, but it's also like, oh, if I'm in with him, then I have a little bit of a like stance here that other people don't have, a little bit of a platform.
Yeah, because going into the scene, or the first scene, where we see Sophia goes and she asks for the raise, and it escalates pretty quickly to him deciding to use the tools to rip out her teeth.
Hmm.
And I thought it was kind of interesting the responses of both Sam and Chloe in that situation. And I was wondering, that's why I asked about Chloe, was that kind of her being in a situation where she is scared of what would happen next as a woman? Or was
Yeah.
that her also kind of her not being caring? Like, I didn't know if she was scared
Yeah.
or if she was uncaring.
I mean, it's not like she's the most caring person in the world, but she also is part of this circus and knows what Dawn can be like, and that's why she desperately wants to have some sort of like title or power in there because, she's like the rest of them under his thumb. So it's not like she's the kindest person, but does she actually, we'll just put it this way. She's like a high school bitch, but she doesn't want to see anyone actually be physically harmed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like with her situation too, she's very easily replaced by the next pretty person who comes around.
Yeah. And I think she kind of knows that, which is why she is very giggly and doesn't really do anything to also help Sophia.
Yeah. And then same with Sam. I wrote down like it's just like really is like the best thing that you can say is just Jesus. Like you're not like stepping up, you're not
Yeah.
like trying to combat this, you're not doing
Yeah.
anything.
My my story or like what I have in my head for Sam and his background is he came from like a very, 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 very poor family. And so the circus he's kind of taken care of. And he is really scared to go back to having nothing and to worrying what's going to happen to him. And it's not right, but he does just watch it. And I don't know if you noticed I pulled in some references from Chloe and Sam and Sophia and Marcus. Yeah. And that's why I actually named the character Sam because I knew I was going to have someone just kind of stand by and watch something. And then I was like, the line, and you just watched it in that song. I was like, yeah, there we go. Your name's Sam now.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, apart from their names, were there elements from that song that you were, like, really incorporating, or was that
That was the main one is the and you just watched it because I was like, oh, yeah, that would kind of suck for the story to just have someone watch you be mutilated.
it would? So, this scene, it's apart from the house held by Ivy, I think this is the most graphic that you've gotten, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
So, I love that. That's great. So, at the very beginning, you show her looking at the lion Leo, who has already gotten its teeth removed and gotten what sound like its claws removed, also.
Mhm.
And you have a line in there about how it would be cruel to, how she didn't know if it was cruel to, like, be gentle to it without being able to offer any comfort, like
Yeah.
lasting comfort. And I was wondering, like, obviously that's like a bit of a parallel to what happens to Sophia in this story. And I was wondering also if maybe that was kind of how Sam was feeling during that situation, was he's just like, there's nothing that I think I can actually do. And so even if I try to step forward, it would give false hope.
Yeah, very much like he definitely should have done something, but yeah, no, that's basically how him and I think everyone in this particular circus anyway feels when they see something happening to one of the other performers. They're just kind of like, I want to do something, but I can't really do anything. And ultimately that's not really true, but when you're scared and when you're in these situations, like you just kind of go with it.
Yeah. Is this the worst that he has treated somebody though?
Yes. Um, he has mainly stuck to like backhanding and, you know, the occasional like, maybe a punch towards a male performer, like, but he's never done anything like this. This was kind of a whoa kind of
Yeah.
thing.
What
And
do you think kind of stirred him to act more violently than he ever had before?
I think just the fact that somebody didn't just like come up and ask him one time and then cower away and be like, okay, I guess that's it. I think it was just her coming back again and questioning him. And he doesn't like that. He wants to feel in control. He wants to be in power. That mixed with drinking, and he's an angry drunk, which isn't an excuse for anything, but some people
Right.
do get very angry. And he was just, he doesn't, it's almost like if somebody is like questioning him, then it doesn't make him look powerful, so he has to look powerful.
Yeah, especially when he's showing off for this girl that I assume is way too attractive for him.
Yes.
But yeah, because like it's not enough for him to make an effort, like because initially you have him like trying with the pliers, and
Mhm.
then when that's not happening, he goes and grabs a hammer. Like he's
Yeah.
very much a type of person where he's like, if I'm going to say that I'm doing something, if I'm going to start doing something, I'm going to see it to completion.
Yeah, and I think too, it's like I think s I say I think like I don't already know. Sophia is very timid and gentle, but she has kind of stepped forward in the past because she doesn't like the treatment of the animals, which is why I think in there I said, he made fun of her when she cries like every time. And
Right.
so that's already like showing the people around him that, hey, somebody's not okay with the things that you're doing. And even though everyone's not okay with it, I think she's kind of got a little worn down to where her emotions were showing a little more.
Yeah, that and she was getting encouraged to go and talk.
Yeah. So
So,
thanks,
um
Sam.
right, thank you so much. After that happens to her and she is let go, she ends up kind of losing herself a little bit and
Hmm.
kills Chloe after she makes a remark saying, that you shouldn't have challenged him or like something like that.
Yeah. And that kind of came from Chloe wanting to sound like, because they're in this situation where something horrific has just happened. And it's just kind of like Chloe's trying to, be on Don's side while not actually being on his side in this situation. And so she's just kind of like, you should have known not to do that. And so Sophia just kind of snaps. And the reason I kind of had that happen is because I don't remember if it was Long Pond sessions, like for when she was singing folklore and like on Disney Plus, but I'm wanting to say it was Long Pond sessions where Taylor Swift was talking about the song Mad Woman and how like, there's the line women like hunting witches too.
Mhm.
Like and talking about how like I think it was this interview where she was talking about how women tend to go after each other before they go after the men. And that was kind of that is like, yeah, she did snap because something horrific just happened to her. And she just said that to her. But it's also, Chloe is also like a lot easier to do something to than Dawn is. And I
Yeah,
feel like a lot of women feel that way about each other is you're easier to go after than this man is.
yeah, because like even though I think that if Dawn would have said something, I would like to think that Sophia probably would have turned towards him, but it was that Chloe said something first, and she was like, "You know
Yeah.
what, bitch?"
Basically, it's like she kind of just like left herself. It's just kind of like I think anyone who said anything would have, but the reason I wanted it to be Chloe was because of that interview that I saw.
Gotcha. I really liked how you added that. So Sam ends up like escorting her from that situation and getting her out of there. And I really like how you mentioned that it just felt like a few seconds had walked by or passed by that they hadn't even like walked as far as they had. Because I think in like a situation that is very shocking and surreal, that time just really speeds up that quickly and you're really not paying attention to anything. And that was a nice little like detail that you added in.
Thank you.
And then I was curious, so the she ends up getting smacked in the back of the head with a baton. I'm assuming it's a police baton, but
Yeah.
how did they get there so quickly?
Um, well, like I don't know if I probably need to like be a little more specific when I do my rewrites, but I said the last thing she remembered him saying is like, hey, basically, like, what did you do? And in that time, like, more time has passed. He probably said other things and more time has passed. It's just we didn't get all of that because she's not there. It kind of feels like bam, bam, bam for her.
Yeah. So is that kind of like did that like happen pretty quickly where she was hit in the back of the head and like there basically wasn't even like trial?
See, this is where I said that my pacing got a little wonky because I actually at first had her at the gallows and she sees Dawn in the audience and then Sam in the very back and like she's saying Sam in the very back like a coward, like a professional bystander and like and then she just kind of starts laughing, like
Nice.
insanely laughing and then like she, the platform opens up and she drops and then she wakes up and her feet are dangling by her head, but it felt a little off and I couldn't
Okay.
find a way to do that. And then so like I tried to expand it and I'm like, okay, well, here's like kind of what happened. Like, Dawn basically just said she did this to herself. Nobody questioned him because, she's like this freak from the circus and Dawn's like a respectable guy, right?
Right.
And and
And
then
teeth, so
yeah, so like, but then like I felt like the pacing was still off and I would need to maybe either make it a little longer to make it not off. So I just decided, like, I was just like, okay, bam, she wakes up and now she's like, we've kind of skipped all that. But like, there is a version where we see a little bit more. I just couldn't quite make it
gotcha.
work.
I
Yeah.
love that idea though of her just like laughing like maniacally like while it's about to happen.
Yeah. I liked it too, which is why I was sad I cut it, but I couldn't make like the pacing now, I still feel like it's off, but it was more off before. And so I felt like, okay, I'll just cut this and try to figure it out later.
Because I think that like the second half of the story just embodies so much of exactly what I imagined like the mindset was of Taylor Swift's character in Who's Afraid of Little Old Me. It's just like if you wanted me dead, you should have just said and like her just like leaping from the gallows and like
Yeah.
just being like very like scary and very petty and
Yeah. I like
getting
the nothing makes me feel more alive, which is why I was like in
yes,
her death, she felt more alive than like so
yes.
I'm just like I'm getting a little more into the references in this one, I feel like, than most other
Yeah,
stories.
and you definitely get that sense that, like, finally she is free, which I
Yeah.
know that's, like, the closing of this is that, like, she finally feels, like, that freedom,
Yeah.
which has to be, like, really a huge thing for somebody who is basically, like I don't know, like, how long she was in the circus, but, I mean,
Yeah.
that's her life, and, like, that's probably what she pictured was always her life because she wasn't getting paid enough to ever leave. So the second part of this very much gives "I Spit on Your Grave" vibes. Were you going for that? Because
Um, I mean, I didn't have that in my head. Uh, but I'll take it as a compliment. Some people might not like it. I don't know. The people are very split on that movie, but I'll take it as a compliment. I liked the movie.
she goes after Sam first. I like how she just goes to him and she's like has all these powers and she's like, "Can they see me? Can I go through things? Can I move things?" And then like, with the song, like, with the record scratch, and
Yeah.
and, like, she's like, "Okay, like, here's the part," and then she, like, takes off the arm and, like, just stabs it in his eye. I'm just yes.
I know. I don't remember if you remember me texting you or sending you a snap. I can't remember what I did, but I was like, I just wrote a scene for this story in October, and I feel like it's actually unrealistic with the way that it would go, but I'm keeping it in there because I think that's cool. Because
No, I love it.
well, I was looking at the tone arms, and if you rip it off, I think it would actually be just like the little square part with all the wires sticking out and not like a super sharp point. I guess unless you snap it like off in the middle or something. I don't know. But that's what I was talking about.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I was just thinking about, like, the needle on the arm.
Yeah. I was
It'll
more so thinking like the part that she snapped off was like sharp and she
it doesn't matter, ghost powers.
Yes, ghost powers. Being a ghost suits her.
Indeed. Like, she is just, like, reveling in it, and,
Yeah.
like, I like how, Dawn is just like when she goes over to Don afterwards, and he's like, "You're a sweet kid, Sophie." It's just like, "Oh, really? Like, if
Yeah.
he's so sweet, why the fuck did you do this to her, you little asshole?"
Yeah. I think trying to go back into that caretaker role, if you could ever say that was what he was, like to try to gain some sympathy
Mm-mm.
so that she doesn't, murder
Yeah.
him.
No, it's too late for that.
This was like probably one of my most fun stories to write. Aside from The House Held by Ivy, I felt like that one came very naturally, but I felt like this one was the most fun. But I also spent a lot of time editing, and in all that time editing, I still couldn't get the pacing right with the gallows.
But I don't know. I didn't mind the link that you did for like both of them because I thought they were both just like so cool, like a murder.
Okay.
And I know that you don't necessarily like whenever you narrate your own stuff, but I really liked it, like especially like when you were doing like her mocking him with the on Dawn, right now you're just ugly. If you looked a little scarier, maybe you'd bring in some more money. And the way that you
Yeah.
voiced that, like I loved it. I was just like,
Thank you.
yeah.
I think I just don't like, I don't know. Like, I don't mind narrating sometimes, but to sit down and do a whole thing, I'm like, ugh. I'm trying to, because I know sometimes I forget some of my references, so I'm trying to bring them up, even though like I'm going all over the place because I'm like, let me remember. I'm pretty sure it was obvious that my bare hands paved their paths came from the, if it weren't for you, none of us would have this gig, and then the you don't get to tell me you feel bad with
Yeah.
Sam. Like I just felt terrible. Like,
Yes.
I'm sure they're obvious ones, but me being like, I always forget to mention them, so let me just alert them in there.
Yeah, I knew that in order to do this, I would have to like have the lyrics in front of me. So I was like, I'm going to rely on Caleb for bringing up the references because you did a very good job, like weaving them in there.
Yeah.
And I also like with him how she like decides to take it like a step further than like what he did to her and like making him like vomit, like shoving like that like dirty like little like handkerchief and like making him vomit.
Yeah, that was pretty gross.
Yeah,
Like, that was something I added in a little later when I was like, let me try to extend his part a little more because it was a little shorter before I was like, I don't think it should be shorter than Sam's part. And I was just like, oh, that's gross. Sure.
yeah. No, I like it. Like my notes on here is just like, and then you made him vomit, and then I drew like a little like heart next to it, making it so he's like just taking his own medicine and like just her like making it like worse for him. Like and it's just like, hey,
Yeah.
you could have, made it this worse for me too, and you didn't, so I'm gonna take it there.
Yep.
And then I do appreciate like at the end, how she decides to uh release Fangs. Is his name
Bang.
Fangs or Fangs?
Bang.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And have him just like do like the final part of it. It's just
Mhm.
like, yes, like all this justice for these like animals that have been mistreated.
Yeah. Unfortunately, and I don't say it in the story, but unfortunately, if a lion's out of its cage at the circus and it's killed someone, I don't think it's going to go too well for the lion. But I know I was talking with it about it to my husband. He's just like, but what's better for him to get his revenge now and to not live as long, or for him to live the life that he would live otherwise? I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah.
I
So,
mean, he was set up to be mutilated the next day, and like
yeah.
at least with that, it wouldn't be a slow death.
Yeah. I don't know. You know how it's like I hate reading things about animals where animals get hurt, and then I'm just like, let me have these animals that are going through terrible times in my story. So I hate my life.
Yeah, I no, I appreciate that he got to have the revenge instead of like, and that every horrible thing that was going to happen to Fang ended up happening to him because he deserved to die.
He did deserve to die. Like, did you catch the black dog reference? I may have been too subtle or
I
not.
did
I don't
not.
know.
I don't
Oh,
think so.
with the, even if I die screaming from the black dog, and I put she was happy to know that Dawn died screaming.
Yeah.
I guess you can't really catch it as as a reference if like, but I was just trying to pull like stuff from the Tortured Poets department, and even if it wasn't like if no one could tell it's a reference, I was like, let me just.
You're like, I know it's a reference.
I know it's a
No,
reference. It's all that matters.
I just appreciated like that she didn't even like need to watch. Like she knew that like her job was done on that
Yeah.
and just like it just kind of being almost peaceful for her, like just going and like hanging out with Leo, who is her partner in all of this, and them just like chilling for like a little bit with like his screams in the background. It's just like this is
Yeah.
this is nice.
My favorite character is Leo.
Yeah. But overall, this was a very, very good story. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I like was listening to it and like I liked the first part. And then like you go into her being a ghost. I'm just like, ooh, like there's some more to go. And I liked both in my head. It's like two different parts and I just enjoyed listening to this quite a good bit.
Good. I was having, like I said, I was having trouble with the pacing because like I knew that I wanted to get like to the kind of gross stuff like early on with, the stuff that she went through, but then I was like, but then I need to circle it back around and I need it to happen again with somebody else. I was like, I didn't know if it was going to be too repetitive and too much.
Mm-mm.
Oh
No, I
yeah.
mean it could be that I just like the murder, but well, if you like this interview, and hopefully you've already checked out the story, but if you have not and you find it interesting, you can check out the link below.
Thank you so much for watching. And if you come back next month on November 13th, but you go to Ashton's channel, she will have a story for
So Long London.
So Long London. So you get Tortured Poets Department inspired horror stories back to back. So
Yee.
yeah. Anyway, well, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.